This happened to me and a few of my close friends. I'll just refer to them as A, B and C. In 1986, when we were young kids living on the West Coast. The movie, The Goonies, had come out the year prior and the four of us were obsessed with it. We sort of related to the kids and were excited by the normality of their lives and the excitement of the adventure. By the time these events happened, our obsession had reached fever pitch, and I remember the day A rolled up to my house, claiming that he had found a map in his attic that would lead us to buried treasure. Now, you're reading this as an adult, and straight away you'd be thinking, well, why aren't you calling bullshit on this? It's obviously a joke. Well, that's easy to say now, but me, B, and C all got carried away with excitement, and I'm pretty sure A was excited too. It was summer break and it was about 6 AM when A showed up, telling me to ring B and C. This was the days of landline telephone, so I offered A bowl of cereal as it was too early to phone B and C up just yet. My dad was away on a business trip and my mum was just leaving for work as me and A were sat around our kitchen table. My mum embarrassingly kissed me on the forehead and left for the day. Just a FYI, she was a librarian at our local library. As we munched away at our cereal, A pulls out this folded and tattered piece of paper. It has small tears along its perimeter and is worn and coffee coloured. As he begins to unfold it, I realise it's actually a piece of cloth, not paper. I was confused until he had fully unravelled it and I noticed that it appeared to be a map. The illustration fading with what I could only believe was age. A told me it was a map leading to buried treasure, quote, just like in the Goonies. I nearly knocked my cereal bowl off the table and as I ran to my phone to call B and C and tell them to get their asses over here quick. While speaking to them, they both sounded sleepy and I wouldn't reveal the big surprise until they got here. B only lives 5 minutes away and was round my house almost as soon as I'd hung up. C was round within the hour as he lived a fair bit further away. I remember the four of us sat in childish awe around my dining room table as we gazed upon the map, excitement bubbling beneath each and every one of us. The map was hard to describe. It had a cheesy red cross where the treasure was located and had map illustrations of trails and landmarks, but around the perimeter of the map was sketches of what I'd describe as points of distinction with arrows pointing at them, perhaps as a guide to show us we were on the right trail. It was C who claimed he knew where the meadow was, citing that he had seen a similar illustration in a local history book at the library and that our town had been built over it as colonists expanded their territory. Between giving him shit for reading a local history book, we decided to head into the town centre on our bikes and go from there. Our town was a quaint little place that had a nice public space in the centre where there were nice tiled paths and ornate iron benches and ornate iron lampposts. There were lovely native flowers and plants in large planters in the area, and where the tiled paths met was a large granite fountain that sprouted water peacefully all day and all night. We sat on one of the benches, our bikes left in a heap on the floor as we carefully studied the map. We were looking for where the next landmark was, a sketch of a beach with a specific rock in the ocean, when a shadow was cast over our map. "What are you kids doing?" came a slow, raspy voice that was forcing a friendly tone. Before we could answer, he began talking again. "A treasure map, eh? You looking for the treasure too, then?" We turned around to see a man that none of us recognised. He was very tall and unhealthily slender. He wore tattered clothing and looked nervous from his sharp eyes. He was bearing a yellow, toothy grin at the four of us. We weren't stupid and red flags were waving vigorously in all of our heads. This creep was pretending to be in on the treasure hunt and was creeping on us. Gross. B thought quickest and tried telling the sickly looking man that we couldn't tell him where to go without provoking the curse, and that he needed to figure it out for himself. All of this was fictitious, obviously. The man didn't take the bait, and his face seemed to twist from a creepy grin to a sinister stare. It was A who came to the rescue, telling him where we needed to head was the woods on the other side of town, and that we just needed to go and see his mum before going, and we would meet the creepy stalker guy there to find the treasure. We all played along and gave A shit for telling the creep, whose smile had returned, bigger than ever. "I'll meet you there then," he said. "Now start looking." He began walking away, and when he was out of sight, we were all a bit nervous but decided to press on to the beach. After all, he was heading to the other side of town, and we were after the treasure. We rode our bikes down the steep hill that led to the beach. The hill was locally known as Forest Fall Hill because of the thick trees that were like soldiers lined up along the roadside. Because of this, we were all feeling a little edgy about the creepy man from before. Like I say, we weren't stupid and we knew all about stranger danger, so we were just a bit edgy heading to the beach. We walked up the beach and soon saw the rock protruding like a jagged fang from the rough waves. We rode our bikes across the sand, aware of the trail our tyres were leaving in the sand, but not sure how we would be able to cover them. We decided we all needed to calm down, and C said we shouldn't worry about the tyre tracks because the creepy guy was literally on the other side of town. We reached the rock, and it was B who spotted a small cave entrance to our left that was parallel to the rock. We were sure that it was this cave that we must go into, as the sketch showed an open chasm with the trove on top of some flat stones. We were all entering the cave when I decided to glance back up the beach. There he was, the creepy guy, as creepy as ever. He cut a lonely figure, walking slowly down the beach towards us. He was too far away to see, but I just know he had that grin on his face. I stopped my friends and we began to panic. Being indecisive, we were taking steps back towards our bicycles and also going into the cave, not knowing which was our best option. Hiding in the cave or booking it on our bikes. The guy was getting closer now, but was still walking slow, as if he relished in our discomfort. I just shouted, "Get in the fucking cave! Go for it, fuck's sake, now!" We all pushed into the cave quickly, and having been brainwashed by too many films, didn't quite grasp how dark it would actually be. I hushed my friends as C turned on a torch. We bundled into a crevice and I demanded he turn off the torch. We sat there silently. I'm not ashamed to admit hot tears were cutting down my cheeks as we waited with bated breath. Drip, drip, drip. The only thing we heard as we waited, unmoving, was the gentle splashes of ocean water against stone. We were beginning to let our guard down when the sound of the drips was drowned out by footsteps that slapped off the ground authoritatively. C cried out a meek squeak and the footsteps stopped. "Boys, quick," a familiar raspy voice came. "I found the treasure." I took the lead and shouted, "Run for the bikes!" The rest of this is a blur, but in the darkness, we all ran for the cave entrance. I smashed my hip off a rock on the way, and I'm pretty sure I actually tumbled into the tall man. Me, A, and B all tumbled onto the sand and flung ourselves up, grabbing our bikes. Where was C? We couldn't see him anywhere. I looked back towards the cave, shouting his name, and in the mouth of the cave, I saw the tall man begin to emerge. We booked it out of there as fast as we could. Hot tears were rushing down all our faces as we rode into the town centre and broke down. Some locals came over immediately to comfort us and see what happened, and those that recognised us went to get our parents. We were absolute messes and couldn't splutter out a single coherent sentence between sobs of C's name. The sheriff showed up and gathered as much info as he could and went down to the beach himself. I was told later it was a sad scene. In the sand was C's red bike, and the cave itself was empty. Turns out the map was fake and that A had made it himself, so the four of us had something to do. But you can't blame him. We were just kids and we just wanted to have fun. We were innocent and A could never have known what was going to happen. C's parents blame us. I still see them occasionally in town now, as does B, though me and B rarely speak. A actually went to college and overdosed in his second year. The note blamed his guilt for C's disappearance. Now, I've done plenty of talks at schools and clubs across the country now, teaching the principles of stranger danger and ensuring kids have the skills necessary to not become another C. Though I have kept a degree of anonymity around this story, if, on the off chance that C's parents are reading this, then I truly am sorry. We were just kids trying to have fun and could have never foreseen these consequences. If the tall guy is reading this, words can't even describe what I hope happens to you, you sick, twisted bastard. Not sure if this was scary or just sad, but this story just goes to show the knock-on effect one evil man can have on a group of children's innocence and life. I'm a 60-year-old male who lives in the county of Yorkshire in England. Over the past few years, I've been metal detecting as a pastime, as the hobby has gone through somewhat of a renaissance over here, exploding in popularity and reaching new heights it never had before. I'm not sure what it's like in the States or in the global community at large, but although you can metal detect on the beaches of England, it's more popular to strike up deals to detect on farmers' land, which, due to England's vast history, may have been a battle site or a settlement generations ago. This happened just last year to my friend, and to give you more of an idea of what happened, I'm going to need to explain a few more things about the hobby. Though metal detecting seems mundane and boring, there's actually a seedy underbelly to the hobby called night hawking. This is where, in the dead of night, metal detectorists will illegally trespass on farmland or historical sites, detect, and leave by sunup. This is terrible for a number of reasons, not limited to 1. Gives detectorists a bad name with farmers. 2. Nighthawkers often leave fields and sites a mess, so it's also vandalism. 3. It's technically stealing our country's history, as objects are being sold to the highest bidder that should be in museums, or, at the very least, catalogued and studied before sale. Now, I have pretty strong views on nighthawkers. They're the cancer of the hobby, so imagine my disgust when my friend, for the sake of the post, let's call him Tony, told me that he and a friend were going on holiday to Cornwall, and that he was going to nighthawk on a few fields down there. We argued about this and it got pretty heated. He said I needed to relax and that it wouldn't be harming anyone. Was he retarded? Of course it harmed people. Fuming, I left him to it, deciding that I wanted nothing to do with it. Fast forward 2 weeks and Tony is back, and I'm still mad at him when I got a call off him telling me he needs to see me. I was thinking he might apologise and tell me how guilty he feels about participating in a nighthawk search. I was wrong. It was a rainy afternoon and we met up at Lily's Cafe and Bistro, a local butty shop where we would usually meet for a brew before a search. Tony shows up and has a bundle wrapped in tissue paper protected under his arms. He seems nervous and a little edgy, but excited too. "Look," he begins, "I'm not here to have another disagreement about nighthawking. I don't have time. Nighthawking is stupid, it's unfair and, well, it's dangerous, but I need you to look at this for me." He looks around the bistro and places the bundle softly on the table, and then he begins to unwrap it. His hands reveal a small, gold bracelet, something like I'd never seen before. It was hard to determine an age or era, but if I had to guess, I'd probably say it was early Viking. It was masterfully crafted, yet still had some crude elements to it. The bracelet's design was that of intertwining rope that laced around to the back and revealed, it was actually 2 serpents, and the band had rubies and emeralds encrusted on the front. It was beautiful, but again, it was like nothing I'd ever seen. What the... Where? You? I spluttered. He shushed me as he revealed it was part of a small hoard he and his nighthawking partner had found. I lectured him again on how fucking stupid he was for nighthawking, and then berated him by rhetorically asking if he was going to take this to a museum. He shook his head, citing the fact that their nighthawk search had already made local rounds and it was too hot at the moment. Then he looked away and had a look of anguish painted across his face. "What is it?" I asked. He was silent. "My partner, John, he died." I was in shock. My attitude immediately changed and I began comforting him and asking if he was okay. Can we walk?" We set off to the local public park and walked to a small lake that rested on the grounds. We sat on a small memorial bench, kind of ironic in the wake of a death, as Tony spilled the beans. He claimed that John had been acting strange since finding the hoard, and Tony admitted that John had been the first to discover it and that he had been babbling about being cursed. Tony had no clue where he got the idea of a curse from, but that didn't matter. John was convinced something was following him, something like a Grim Reaper. Tony claimed that John claimed that he was being stalked by a shadowy figure wearing large, oversized black robes that stood 7 to 8 feet tall. What had I been dragged into? Tony had lost it, and I was scared. He was obviously grieving his friend's untimely passing. Tony must have read my mind, as he told how John had died. He had been hit by a train in Kent. Apparently, it was a freak accident, and he had slipped on a baby's rattle. Seriously, he had slipped on it and fell backwards onto the track as the train was arriving. Okay, I was slightly creeped, but I had no time for ancient curses. That was until Tony told me that he was now seeing the phantom figure. I didn't want to buy into his madness, but I was beginning to believe him. His emotion was true. There were no lies in his tears. I told him to take a step back. What was the provenance of the item? What period did it date from? Did he know who made it? Tony. He had worked as an archaeologist himself until 2004, when he retired. Claimed he had no idea himself. I asked to see the rest of the hoard, and he said it had been with John and he doesn't know where it is now, but there was a circlet and an old sword. All items that usually have distinct designs depending upon which period they come from, making them rather easy to identify. Obviously, these were nothing like any of us had seen. My head was exploding. I was a simple retired builder who enjoyed metal detecting, and I was being dragged into a fucking crime drama. I told Tony to stay with me for a few days, and he agreed, outright saying he was too scared to be on his own at the moment. Maybe he was just hysteric, but it was rubbing off on me, and I was scared for him. Was I buying into it? This is where the story takes a crazy turn. Tony stayed with me for a few days, still claiming to see the robed figure, but claiming it never came close to him and that he was feeling better. He decided to go back to his place after a week of staying with me, and he died from cardiac arrest the day after he left. Now, I can't put too much stock into this being the hooded figure. I mean, Tony was 5 years my senior and was pretty out of shape, with a beer belly to prove it, but it sure was a crazy coincidence. I went to his place to help clear it out. Tony didn't really keep in touch with his son, and the rest of his relatives were either dead or in homes. When there, I couldn't find the bracelet. It had gone. There's a chance his son took it when he came to take valuables, but he left the rest of his dad's metal detecting finds. However, the bracelet did look stunning. All of this could, and probably is, entirely circumstantial. Both deaths, one a highly unfortunate accident, but still, an accident, and the other a natural death brought on by poor dietary choices and exercise deprivation. The missing hoard could have gone anywhere whilst properties were being cleared out, and Tony might have only seen the robed figure because John had claimed to see it too. Still, something niggles at me about the whole thing. I can't explain it, but part of me just feels a certain truth in the robed figure. I just wonder if Tony's son did take the bracelet. Is he seeing the hooded man? Hey guys, Brothers Jackson here. I really hope you enjoyed this video. So it was only 2 stories, but 2 slightly longer stories than usual, and 2 on a subject that's not that commonplace. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it as something a little bit different. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more. Hit that bell notification because next week's video is scary stories from my home city. So be sure to tune in for that. Thank you very much guys. Peace.